Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Hello, everybody. This is Carter Froelich, and welcome to the Land to Lots podcast. In this podcast, we are going to be continuing our discussion on the launch sequence phase 2 or stage 2, which is the implementation process. In the first podcast, we discussed how we are implementing the financing that was planned during our planning process. And where we left off, we had just completed the development agreement or the pre-annexation and development agreement. Now we are going to be talking about the establishment of the special purpose taxing district. Depending upon what state or what jurisdiction you're working in, the application for forming a special district can literally be a few pages that you have to fill in, give a legal description, title report, and you're done. Or it can be hundreds of pages of various different documents, and it can be very time consuming to put together. When we are preparing a district application, here again, because every one of our transactions is custom made, we want to make sure that that district application is outlining the financing that we want to implement that was planned during the planning process and that we wrote up in the development agreement or the pre-annexation and development agreement. So all these documents are starting to tie together. The other thing that we do with this district application is, for me, the district application becomes a record of the intent of the parties when the district was formed. And we had set up a district in the Southwest for a 10,000 acre master plan community. And we were very specific in the infrastructure that we wanted to be financing through the application. Here again, this was referenced in the financing agreement related to the district. 20 years in, we got a new city manager that came and city attorney, and they wanted to read certain things into the development agreement or the district financing agreement and the development agreement that weren't there. And what we were able to do is go back to the application that we had prepared 20 years ago and said, guys, we were very specific. This was our intent. This is what was applied for and approved by the city, that we could finance our in-tract improvements by any type of bond that we could issue pursuant to state statute. As a result of that, we ended up winning the day. But here again, all of these documents tie together to tell a story, and somebody has got to tell the story. And that's what we at Launch are doing. We're telling the story. We're making sure that all of these interconnecting pieces connect and that they're coherent and consistent. As it relates to development agreements and the establishment of districts, if possible in the development agreement, I like to lay out all of the critical terms so that once we related to the financing, so that once we have the DA done, when we go to petition the city, we tell the city or the jurisdiction that we've already agreed to all the salient points on the financing. They're outlined in the development agreement. There's nothing to negotiate. Let's move forward. The other thing is, if we can, oftentimes I will try to form the district on parallel tracks as when we're negotiating the development agreement, just to make sure that there is nothing lost in between the understanding of the parties between when the development agreement is recorded and when the district is formed. And a perfect case in point is we had a client call us saying, hey, Cart, we would like you to take a look at this development agreement. We're just about done with it, but would you look at it? And we'd like to form a CFD, and this is in the state of Arizona. And so I looked at it, and I said, this doesn't have anything in it related to the establishment of the district. Plus, I'd like to add a number of different things on, oversizing and development impact fee credits and reimbursement agreements. Can we do that? Anyway, long story short, the city said, hey, trust us. These are all good points. We're going to do everything you had told us to do. And even though I cautioned our client not to do it, that we should take the time to get this stuff in the DA, they were in a hurry because they had commitments to builders. So they recorded the development agreement. And 6 months later, when we came to the jurisdiction with our preferred financing plan in the district application that we had discussed with them, the city said, "We are so glad you guys are here." But over the 6 months that's transpired, that fire station that you were going to build in year 7, we would like you to build that in year 2. And by the way, we'd like you to equip it. And by the way, we'd like you to pay $1 million a year until you reach a certain build out level. Our client got totally hosed on this because they trusted the jurisdiction. So I have absolutely no trust for jurisdictions, and I want everything done and memorialized, so that there is no misunderstandings. And so as part of the district application process, we are very specific that which is in the development agreement or that which is planned is that which is laid out in the formation of the district. Second of all, once we have that application in, we want to drive the process, meaning if somebody's not driving the process between the jurisdiction, the district, and all the consultants, then really nothing happens. So to the extent that we can, we will come in and we will prepare tasks and responsibilities and due dates and hold people accountable as we're moving the process forward to get the district formed and making sure that this gets done in a very timely manner. The best means to get that done is to have a standing call, to have the agenda on what we want to accomplish during that call. And then second of all, to have the roles and responsibilities or tasks and responsibilities list, who's doing what, when, who's slipping, why are they slipping, and what are they going to do to get caught back up. It holds everybody accountable and keeps the process moving forward. Now, once we get the district formed and we're starting to get into doing bond transactions, now the rubber starts hitting the road, right? And we're getting other consultants involved. We're getting ready to issue bonds to construct or reimburse us for infrastructure, and depending upon what kind of bond we're issuing, and one of the more complex is a special assessment. So I'm going to talk about that specifically as it relates to this part of the podcast. But when we are in the process of doing a bond issuance, we, as much as we would like to think that the developers are in the bond issuing business, they're not. They're in the lot provision business for home builders. Home builders are in the business of providing homes to home buyers. And as a result of that, we have to make sure that what we're presenting to the home buying public is something they want to buy. So obviously planning, amenities, topography, ingress, egress, all that stuff goes into it, school districts, etc. But the thing that we're really looking at as it relates to launch is what is the total effective property tax rate that the home buyer is going to be purchasing as part of their PITI, and how does that relate to the rest of the market. And when it comes to the preparation of assessment methodologies, we want to make darn sure that if we had assumed that a lot will be taking a $20,000 assessment, that we end up with a $20,000 assessment on a per lot basis, and that the calculation we had assumed that the home buyer would be responsible is that which we had planned for. So as part of that, what we really want to do is make sure that the way that the costs are allocated to the benefiting property is laid out and it's clear. Here again, we'll often do that in the development agreement. Here's how the assessments are going to be spread. So that's already been determined. So if the city or the jurisdiction or the district brings in an assessment engineer, we've already laid out the terms. We've already done the math so that we know we're going to get that $20,000 per lot assessment. Oftentimes, what we will do, because if we've done our homework right, we'll have the ability to pick the assessment engineer that will agree to the allocation of costs based on what we've told them, and or we'll literally do the math for them, give them the work product, have them review and check it, make some tweaks to it, but make it their own. So not only do we get the number that we wanted, but that we're speeding that process up as quickly as possible. The next really important component as it relates to assessment bonds gets into the review of the appraisal. Now, prior to the review of the appraisal, here again, we want to make sure that we're getting the number that we think our finished lot values are actually worth. And to that end, and what they say about any great attorney is never ask a question that you don't know the answer for. And for us, it's never lay down an assessment unless you know what the appraiser is going to come back with. And in many instances, we have the appraiser's models. So we're running the models prior to us giving them the input, so we know what those numbers are going to be. And number two, if for some reason we run into a challenge where the value doesn't come in as high as what we thought it would be, given some sort of market correction or increases in interest rates or something that is out of our control, we have already put within the development agreement means by which we can still pull out that same amount of money that we had anticipated. In my example, $20,000 a door. And we've set up mechanisms that are going to allow us to go get that money, even if we don't initially hit the value to lien requirements that we had laid out. So it's really important to have a good understanding of value. And we're really unique at launch because we're affiliated with the Land Advisors Organization, which is the largest land-only brokerage firm in the U.S. And we have all of the comps in all of the major markets. So we know what raw land is selling for, what entitled land is selling for, what super pads are selling for, blue top lots are selling for, and what finished lots are selling for. So we've got a myriad of different data sources that we can go through to make sure that we're gonna hit the right numbers. So the appraisal, it's critical. And once we get the appraisal back, we're obviously going through that to make sure that all the numbers are ticking and tying and that we're in agreement. And if for some reason there are some issues with the appraiser, we're going to go back and talk to them on why we think the value should be something other than what is currently. Now that we have our appraisal, we have our assessment methodology, we're getting into the bond issuance. And some depending upon what state, what jurisdiction, we may have to prepare a financing request, which we are doing because we know how to run the numbers on all the different bonds, assessment bonds, GO bonds, revenue bonds. We know what what the gross bond amount will be. And then going into our launch reimbursement system, which is our cloud-based system that we use to track all of the eligible costs that are available for reimbursement through the district, along with all of the prevailing wage reports, public bidding reports, contracts, change orders, canceled checks, lien releases, acceptance letters, all those kind of things. If we know that we're going to be issuing a $15 million bond, and assuming that we're getting reimbursed for costs, we can go through and click off the items that we want to get reimbursed until we get to 15 million, hit a button, and then prepare those reimbursement packages so we're ready to go. So that the idea being the minute those bonds are issued, the $15 million comes into the project fund and it gets wired out immediately because we've already had the reimbursement binder prepared. But here again, that's if we have to prepare an application or a request for financing. But at a minimum, we need to know what we're going to be reimbursing because that information is going to be going into the official statement. And as part of that official statement process, what we'll do for the most part is assist the developer in writing the developer section, the development section. What is this project? What is its stage of development? How much has been expended to date? How many lots have been sold to builders? How many finished lots have been constructed? How many homes have been built and sold? What is the next phase? What is the financing that's available? what are the current costs, so it's just a deep dive into what the development is, where it's at, what its entitlements are, where water and sewer is coming from, those kind of things. And then also we'll get into writing up the district, what bonds are being issued, and what we're going to be acquiring or constructing through that bond issuance. The reason we do it is because our clients are busy building. They've got lots of other things on their plates, and it's just easier for us to take the initial swipe at it and then give it back to the developer and to their legal counsel for them to go through, proof it, edit it, and make it their own document. But here again, everything we're doing is trying to move this process smoothly with the right answers, to go quickly, and to be able to finance that which was originally planned during our planning process of the launch sequence. The next big item related to the issuance of bonds is getting into the mind-numbingly long documents that are associated with a bond issuance. And the biggest is the indenture. And I can't tell you enough how important it is to look at the indenture and make sure that the indenture is including all of the bells and whistles of the financing and all the lettuce and tomatoes that we have in our custom crafted financing that we did during our planning process, that we wrote in the development agreement, that we put in the district formation documents, that we put in the request for bond issuance. Now we're getting into the owner's manual. And because bond attorneys have a tendency to just print out the last deal that was kind of sort of like the one we're doing, and because all of our transactions are custom made, somebody has to go through, and this is us, to make sure that there is clarity in all the matters related to finance. So, as I indicated before, a lot of times we have seen these documents not accurately reflect that which was planned and implemented, because if this indenture is wrong, this is the guiding document of the financing. If for some reason we would ever need to go in and fix the district for whatever reason, and by the way, I've never had to go back in and fix one of our districts. We fixed a lot of other ones. But this indenture is crucial, that we have the ability to get underneath the hood and know how the engine works. And as part of our bond issuances, we want to make sure that engine that we're installing in our bond issue is that which was designed throughout the launch sequence process. That really takes us now into the point where we've got the district formed and we've issued the first series of bonds. The bond proceeds are now flowing back to the trustee. They're being held. All the consultants leave, and the developer and the district are sitting there looking at each other, and they're saying, now what do we do? And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next series of the podcasts related to the launch sequence, and that is the management process. So I hope you've really enjoyed this podcast. And if you find it interesting, I encourage you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, feel free to share this with others that you feel may benefit. And as always, thank you for allowing me to take part of your day and to share with you these ideas. And should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My cell phone number is on the website. Thank you very much.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Follow us wherever you find your podcast to never miss a new episode.